Released in 1982, First Blood introduces the world to John Rambo, but it is completely different from the explosive, high body count sequels that followed. Directed by Ted Kotcheff and based on David Morrell's 1972 novel, this film is fundamentally a tense, gritty, and deeply emotional character study about PTSD and how society rejects its returning veterans. Sylvester Stallone plays John Rambo, a drifting Vietnam War veteran and former Green Beret. When a small-town sheriff, Will Teasel, Brian Dennehy, unfairly targets and arrests him for vagrancy, the abuse Rambo faces in jail triggers severe wartime flashbacks. He snaps, breaks out, and wages a one-man defensive war in the nearby mountain wilderness. The critical review. Unlike the heavily commercialized action blockbusters of the late 1980s, First Blood holds up as a masterpiece of survival cinema. The action is grounded, visceral, and relies entirely on survival tactics rather than cartoonish firepower. Stallone gives arguably one of the finest performances of his career. He plays Rambo not as an unfeeling killing machine, but as a deeply traumatized, lonely human being who just wants to be left alone. The absolute highlight of the film is the raw, emotional climax inside the devastated police station, where Rambo breaks down in front of his former commander, Colonel Troutman, Richard Crenna. His sobbing monologue about the horrors of war and the pain of returning to a civilian life that hates him is an incredibly moving piece of cinema that gives the entire film its soul. Awards and accolades. Because it was viewed primarily as a mainstream action film in 1982, First Blood was largely overlooked by major American awards bodies like the Oscars or Golden Globes. However, it achieved immense critical respect internationally and over time. Jupiter Award, Germany. Sylvester Stallone won the Best International Actor Award in 1982 for his combined work in First Blood and Rocky III. Legacy praise. In the decades following its release, it has been widely cited by film critics as one of the greatest, most influential action thrillers of all time. The sequel contrast. Interestingly, while the original First Blood avoided the Razzie Awards, which celebrate the year's worst films, its bombastic 1985 sequel, Rambo: First Blood Part 2, dominated them, winning Worst Picture, Worst Actor, and Worst Screenplay. 5 fascinating behind-the-scenes facts. 1. The surprisingly low body count. Despite Rambo's reputation as a lethal killer, he kills exactly one person in the entire runtime of First Blood. Even then, it is an accident. He throws a rock at a helicopter in self-defense, causing a corrupt deputy, who was trying to shoot him, to lose his balance and fall out. Rambo goes out of his way to merely incapacitate the remaining police officers and soldiers. 2. Stallone hated the first cut so much he wanted to burn it. The original rough cut of the movie was over 3 hours long, featured an abundance of cheesy dialogue, and Stallone absolutely detested it. Fearing it would ruin his career, he actually tried to buy the film's negative prints so he could physically destroy them. When that failed, he suggested heavily editing out his own dialogue, letting his silent, physical performance tell the story instead. This cut the runtime in half and saved the movie. 3. A Rolodex of Hollywood legends almost played Rambo. First Blood spent a decade in development hell, and a massive list of legendary actors were attached or considered before Stallone. Al Pacino wanted to play him but walked away because the script wasn't crazy enough. James Garner, a real-life Korean War veteran, turned it down because he didn't like the idea of a veteran fighting American police officers. Other stars considered included Clint Eastwood, Steve McQueen, Robert De Niro, and Dustin Hoffman. 4. Broken bones and real screams. Stallone did many of his own stunts, resulting in severe real-life injuries. During the famous scene where Rambo jumps off a cliff and crashes through tree branches, Stallone actually broke a rib on the third take. The agonizing scream you hear in the final movie is his actual reaction to the injury. Furthermore, during the prison escape scene, Stallone accidentally elbowed an actor in the face and broke his nose. That actor can be seen wearing a real Band-Aid for the rest of the movie. 5. Rambo was named after an apple. Author David Morrell struggled for a long time to come up with a name for his protagonist. One day, his wife brought home a batch of crisp, flavorful apples. When he asked what variety they were, she told him they were Rambo apples, a type originally brought to America by a 17th century Swedish settler. He loved the aggressive sound of the word and decided it was perfect for his character.